Today we're at our facility. We're going to show you the full process of going from unroasted coffee to actually packing one of our Bruvi pods. So we're going to start today in what we call the quarantine room. This is where all the coffee shows up through these doors and gets stacked up. And it'll sit here for a little bit. This is where most coffee sits before it gets roasted. As you can see, it's just stacked up on these big pallets to go through a lot of roasting. And once it's ready to be roasted, it'll be moved over to this. Really, it removes any kind of debris from the coffee. So they pour it in, and they essentially use gravity because most debris, which could be rocks, screws, just random detritus, it's heavier than green coffee. So the green or unroasted coffee gets sucked up through this machine, back down, and then it's in the system. So from this point, the coffee isn't exposed to air or oxygen or light or anything. It's all conveyed through a series of tubes into the roaster, out of the roaster. Once the coffee's in the system, it gets put into one of these green silos before it gets roasted. From there, it gets piped. You can see the pipes over into one of these roasters. These things can roast about 400 pounds of coffee every 15 or so minutes. And we've worked a long time with the roasters here to make sure we get every detail right. So we're controlling the heat at every second of the roast. We're controlling the roast time. We're controlling airflow. And we're controlling the quench of the coffee at the end, how quickly it cools off and how much it cools off before we put it back into this system here. So after it's roasted, the coffee needs to degas for a period of time. This is both for practical reasons. If there's too much gas in the pods, they kind of bulge out too much to be useful. And also, for reasons of quality and taste, coffee tastes better after it's sat for a period of time. So for us, we need at least a day of whole bean coffee sitting in these silos before it's ready to grind and be processed into coffee pods. This is our specially made coffee grinder. We had to get a specially made one for a few reasons. The number one, though, is espresso. Most grinders on the market are not built to grind espresso, and even if technically they can get that fine, this grinder offers us a level of control because there are 3 levels of cutting surfaces called rollers in this grinder. And so we can adjust every level to not only adjust how fine the coffee is, but also the shape of the coffee distribution profile. This means if we like the flavor of the coffee, but we need it to develop more pressure, for example, to have a thicker crema on the coffee, we can widen the profile. This will produce more resistance to the coffee pod. This coffee is fresh, so it's going to be off-gassing a lot of CO2, but we still want to help it out to keep it fresh. We're going to flush all of the oxygen, residual air out of here with a nitrogen hookup. This is where it starts for us. So we put in these little filters. This is the filter, like the core of the B-Pod. We load them up. We put in the filters. Today we're packing espresso, so it has to be high pressure filters. They're kind of reinforced. And it's very precise. The amount of coffee is in there varies only by maybe 1/5 of a gram between cups, which is important because that's a lot for espresso. Espresso is very sensitive to the amount of coffee in the cup. The cap sorters are pushing caps over, they're getting picked up via suction and placed on those filters. And then this is a super important step. Those are Telsonic welders. So they're essentially plastic welding the cap onto the filter.